The 10 biggest lies of the enemy and how to combat them. All right. We are on day 20. Day 20. And today we're getting into the scriptures. The scriptures to counter, to learn to heal from the lie that the devil is as powerful as God. Okay, that's the lie that we're focusing on right now. It's the lie number 4 out of 10. The devil is as powerful as God. Unleashing the sword of the Spirit. So he takes us in scripture, and now there were several scripture references yesterday whenever we were getting into the speaking the lie and encountering the truth. So, if you need to reflect back on those scripture verses, just keep those in your memory, all right? And continue as you're reading this stuff to press into where you may have fallen into agreement, or just see how this lie might, I think it might be a sneaky one. I think in our head we might think that we truly understand and truly believe that God is abundantly, that can't even be compared to Satan, but yet our actions and the way that we live our lives may not be reflective of what it is that we say we believe. Okay, I think we really have to take a hard look at that, to be honest with you. And it really comes back to understanding. I don't know that we ever fully understand who God is, but believing and trying to understand, trying to know, and trying to accept the fullness of God, that He is all, everything, all knowing, all powerful, and everywhere, that He transcends time and space and transcends everything. He's outside of everything else, okay? We just, to try to wrap your mind around that and to live from that place. I think we can say we understand it and say we know it, but are we living from that place? If you're riddled with fear, I'm going to challenge you, you're not living from that place, okay? So, he starts with Isaiah 42:13 today. 42:13. The Lord goes forth like a warrior. Like a man of war, He stirs up His fury. He shouts out His battle cry. Against His enemies, He shows His might. I think to me, it really just says this is a battle for certain. This is a battle. We're in a battle. We're in a battle against, good versus evil. We know that Satan's his task since he was thrown out of heaven is to steal your soul. Okay? That's his sole mission. Soul mission. All right? So that's the first verse that the author sends us to today. The second, we come over to the New Testament, and it's from John. John chapter 12, verses 27 through 36. John 12, 27 through 36. So this is coming into where Jesus's hour is at hand. It's where He's getting ready to, the passion is getting ready to take place, where He's going to be condemned to death and go on that journey towards His death. Okay, so He says, I am troubled now, yet what should I say? Father, save me from this hour. But it was for this purpose that I came to this hour. Remember, He came to save us all, okay? He knew His purpose. It was for this purpose that I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it and will glorify it again. The crowd there heard it and said it was thunder, but others said, an angel has spoken to him. Jesus answered and said, this voice did not come for my sake, but for yours. Remember, He knew His purpose. He knew His purpose. This verse coming up is the verse that really jumped out at me. Now is the time of judgment on this world. Now the ruler of this world will be driven out. Remember, this lie that we're countering is that Satan is as powerful as God, okay? Satan is not as powerful as God. Now is the time of judgment on this world. Now the ruler of this world, Satan, will be driven out. He's driven out. He's driven out. And when I am lifted up from the earth, when He's ascended into heaven, I will draw everyone to myself. He said this indicating the kind of death He would die. So the crowd answered Him. Okay, you You can read the rest of that yourself, okay? But we're called to the light. While you have the light, believe in the light so that you may become children of the light. We don't have to live in fear. We don't have to live in fear. The ruler of this world, he's the prince of this world. Satan, this is Satan's territory. He will be driven out, though. He will be driven out. We go over to John 16. John 16, verses 32 and 33. Behold, the hour is coming and has arrived when each of you will be scattered to his own home, and you will leave me alone. But I am not alone, because the Father is with me. I have told you this so that you might have peace in me. In the world you will have trouble, but take courage. I have conquered the world. We're going to have trouble in this world, guys. It's not easy. We're going to come up against trials and struggles. This is where focusing on who God is and focusing on the abundant power of God, that's where we're anchored. That's where we have to stay anchored. Satan is not as powerful as God. Satan doesn't even come close. And remember, the Spirit of God is within you. If you're baptized, you call upon that Spirit of God. The Spirit of God is within you. He has overcome the world. In the world you will have trouble. Not you might have trouble. Not you're probably going to have trouble. In the world you will have trouble. You will have trouble. But take courage. I have conquered the world. I have conquered the world. He's conquered the world. I want to talk a little bit about Revelation. He gives us two different scripture references. One's a passage and one's just a verse from Revelation. Okay? Revelation chapter 12 is probably one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. All right? But I want to talk a little bit about Revelation because I think sometimes people can be scared of Revelation, scared of that book, because of all of the imagery and the symbolism. I'll take some pictures of the scripture that I use. The Bible that I use gives a really good explanation of each book before the book begins, the history of the book, the type of literary style that it's written in. But I want to talk a little bit about Revelation because I think there can be a misconception about Revelation. It does have, some unfamiliar and extravagant symbolism. But it's not to be taken as a literal description, or is it meant to be pictured realistically? Okay? It was very typical of some of the literary works that came out of that time. From about 200 BC to 200 AD, there was this style of literature that had popularity in both Jewish and Christian circles. Okay, so it's written with that same style. And if you look individually at the books of the Bible, there's different styles that they're written in. So Revelation, it's a revelation to John, okay, and it's the last book of the Bible. But it's just this. It's a extravagant symbolism. The symbolic descriptions are not to be taken as literal, all right. But the words that are used, there's a lot of symbolism in it. Okay, so when you see the number 7, that's a universal. Like when you see that there are like 7 horns. Okay, that the fact that there's 7 of them. Means that it's universal. Whenever the horns symbolize power, the eyes, when it talks about all those eyes, that's knowledge, okay? So it's the universal power and knowledge. It's that kind of symbolism, okay? Let's see. Symbolic colors, metals, and garments. The numbers, okay? The number 4 signifies the world. The number 6 symbolizes imperfection. 7 is totality or perfection. 12 Israel's 12 tribes or the apostles. 1,000 it's this immensity. Okay, so there's you think about Revelation with all of this the pictures that you could paint in your head, but it all means something. that's just very typical of the writings of that time, okay? But I think it's interesting, you know, when I'm reading this, this book was written, it's like resistance literature to meet a crisis. Okay, the crisis of the time was the ruthless persecution of the early church by the Roman authorities. But the purpose was to exhort the Christians to stand firm in the faith and to avoid compromise with paganism despite the threat of adversity. All right, but man, is this not relevant for today? For us to stand firm despite everything that's going on in the world that is not of God. To stand firm. The book presents the decisive struggle of Christ and his followers against Satan and his cohorts as already over. You know, and keep in mind, the Bible was not divided up into chapter and verse until about the 11th century. So these books were written by different authors, and they were compiled. Okay, they called upon the Holy Spirit to determine which books would be compiled into what we know today as the Bible. But they were not divided up into chapter and verse. So that means chapter 11 flowed straight into chapter 12. You know, chapter 12 flowed straight into chapter 13. I think too many times we try to take our own human understanding of this present day, and that's the lens with which we view this stuff, and we miss out on so much if we do that. Okay? So specifically, Revelation, starting at Revelation chapter 12 and going to chapter 20, it's the central section of Revelation that portrays the power of evil represented by a dragon in opposition to God and his people. So if you read that, I mean, you just see where he was overcome, where Satan was overcome. He was outpowered, okay? If you really need to wrap your mind around the fact that God is way, 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 way more powerful than Satan, you know, read it through that lens. Read it through that lens. Because that's the power that we draw upon. We don't battle this from our own from our own flesh. We can't. It doesn't work. Okay? Satan is an angel. He's a fallen angel, but he still has those angelic intelligences and power. Okay? We're human. We're not angels. But we have the same power that rose Jesus from the dead inside of us. And, you know, the author yesterday gave us a little snippet of Revelation chapter 12, but it's like one of my favorites. So we're just gonna look at it, okay? Revelation chapter 12, the woman and the dragon. A great sign appeared in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was with child and wailed aloud in pain as she labored to give birth. Okay? We often see images of Mary with 12 stars around her head and clothed with the sun in her bright garments. All right? Because of Eve's sin, this woman gives birth in distress and pain. So the imagery that you have here reflects Genesis chapter 37. All right? So because of the sin of Eve in the garden, women have pain during childbirth, okay? This woman gives birth with distress and pain. She was with child and wailed aloud in pain as she labored to give birth. Then another sign appeared in the sky. It was a huge red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its heads were 7 diadems. Its tail swept away 1/3 of the stars in the sky and hurled them down to the earth. Okay? Then the dragon stood before the woman about to give birth to devour her child when she gave birth. Okay? That's Satan. And he took those who were in cohort, or who were his cohorts, and 1/3 of the angels went with Satan. Okay? She gave birth to a son, a male child, destined to rule all the nations with an iron rod. Her child was caught up to God and his throne. The woman herself fled into the desert, where she had a place prepared by God, that there she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. Then war broke out in heaven. You guys, war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels battled against the dragon. The dragon and its angels fought back, but they did not prevail, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The huge dragon, the ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceived the whole world, do not be deceived, deceived the whole world, was thrown down to earth, and its angels were thrown down with it. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have salvation and power come, and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his anointed. For the accuser of our brothers is cast out, who accuses them before our God day and night. They conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Love for life did not deter them from death. They sacrificed their life, okay? They died to self. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great fury, for he knows he has but a short time. When the dragon saw that it had been thrown down to the earth, it pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. Okay? Satan hates Mary. Satan hates her. Satan hates her. Satan hates her. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, so that she could fly to her place in the desert, where, far from the serpent, she was taken care of for a year, 2 years, and a half a year. The serpent, however, spewed a torrent of water out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with the current. He wasn't giving up, okay? He wasn't giving up. He hates her. But the earth helped the woman and opened its mouth and swallowed the flood that the dragon spewed out of its mouth. Then the dragon became angry with the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commandments and bear witness to Jesus. It took its position on the sand of the sea. And it goes on. Then I saw a beast. I mean, it goes on with his prophetic dream that he has. But you guys, there's been a war. There's a war. Satan was thrown out. He hates her offspring. You know, that's Jesus's mom. At the foot of the cross, he gave us to her. We are her offspring too. He's waged war against us, but the battle's already been won. That's what Revelation is about. It's actually a book of hope, not to be feared. It is not to be feared. You know, read it and see it in its entirety. That there's a battle of good versus evil, but that battle has already been won. That battle has been won by Jesus Christ. Whenever he took the cross, he knew why. He knew his purpose. He knew why he was coming. He knew why he was sent. And he did it. He did it out of love. He did it out of love for you and out of love for me. This battle has already been won. When he took the cross and he rose from the dead and he ascended into heaven, he conquered sin, evil, and death forever. Hell is a door locked from the inside, and the only control and the only power that Satan has over you is the power that you give him. Man, reclaim your inheritance. Live in your inheritance. God is all powerful. Get into the Word. We have nothing to fear. We have nothing to fear. Revelation chapter 17, verse 14. They will fight with the Lamb, but the Lamb will conquer them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called, chosen, and faithful. Now, are you with him? You know? Are you with him? What are his promises? Get into the Word. Let the Word transform your mind. Sit with the power of God today. Sit with the power of God today. We don't have anything to fear. Satan is a liar. He is the accuser. He's also defeated. He's also defeated. You know, he's not the creator. Don't give him his own clay. Don't give him his own clay in your life. He's not the creator. You were created by the same God that created the universe. Live from that place. Live from that place knowing that you are called, chosen. Be faithful. Don't give the devil his own clay in your life. Claim your inheritance. Live in it. Pretty awesome. All right. Tomorrow, we'll get into spiritual practices and our prayer of renunciation and invoking the saints. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. I'll see you at 7 a.m. Have a blessed Saturday. God bless you.